Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you guys for tuning into another episode of The Power of Storytelling. Today we have Rico Turrubiarte on with us. He's a filmmaker out in LA. If you guys do enjoy this, make sure to like and follow on whatever platform you're listening on. Let's get into the conversation.
Hi, my name is Rico Turrubiarte. I live in Los Angeles, California, and I am a filmmaker. I write, direct, work in the art department, kind of do a lot of different things depending on what the project calls for. But yeah, overall, I'd just say I'm a filmmaker.
Nice, awesome. How'd you get into that industry? Like, what made you want to do that?
I mean, I always wanted to do that. I've always been obsessed with movies and TV from the time I was a little kid. I literally would just stay up all night watching movies whenever I could during the summer. I would just stay in the living room and like watch movies all night until the sun came up.
For
And
sure.
so naturally, I had a predilection towards doing something in that industry. But actually, I studied politics in college, and I was working basically as like a credit analyst at the bank after college, and I realized that that wasn't fulfilling me, and so I jumped to New York City, and my dad worked with a guy whose nephews lived in New York, and they were producers, um, Nick and Gabe Grant, and basically they brought me on to their projects like commercials and infomercials and reality shows and stuff as a production assistant. And so that was my first foray into the world of like actual production, not just making, home movies with my brothers.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I like to ask this too. Um, so for you, as like whether you're watching movies now, do you tend to still watch the movie, or do you kind of think about like what's all going on behind the scenes whenever like you're watching the movie?
Um, movies and TV, I definitely still enjoy as like a viewer.
For sure.
But the thing that like I think I watch more closely is commercials now.
Oh yeah, true.
Like commercials actually make me laugh a lot now because I like seeing how those are made is so funny. Just how like the actors are told to do like very specific things, and then whenever you see it on TV, you realize like how fake what they're doing is. Like the other day, I saw one where somebody was like drumming, but you could tell that they were just like pretending to drum, which is
Yeah,
like
for
so
sure.
weird. Um, yeah, so I think movies and TV I definitely love to watch as a viewer, but commercials I watch with like Hawkeye, I'm like great commercial or like terrible
Yeah,
commercial.
that's awesome. That's hilarious. Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to get your input on that. So for of course for the foundation and the podcast, one thing we like to do is we want to gain inspiration from your life and kind of like your journey to becoming where you are today. So do you have any time in your life that you kind of had a like an obstacle or something come up where you felt like maybe you weren't doing the right thing? I know you're talking about you were in banking. What
Hmm.
was the feeling of what was the feeling like whenever you decided I need to do something different or I'm just not being fulfilled? What was that feeling like, and what made you kind of take the next steps to getting to where you were?
It's like I don't know how deep you like to get into these podcasts, but my mom passed away while I
Oh,
was working at the bank, and she was always a huge proponent of my passions, like movies or whatever I wanted to do. She was kind of the nurture, and my dad was the nature, so it was very much like the realist versus the dreamer
for sure.
kind of thing. But they were both supportive. It was just in a different way. But I think I could definitely put a pinpoint on her passing as the kind of catalyst for the moment that I said to myself, life is so short. Like, why is my only focus on like making money? Why am I not, incorporating the things that I really am passionate about? Because I think that everybody is given like a passion, or multiple passions. You don't have to just do one thing, obviously, but I think that it's at least worth like chasing your passions. Obviously that you have to pay the bills and stuff, but um, I would say that that was definitely a catalyst moment for me. You see the reality of how short life is, and for me, it was like I don't want to just work in an office. I That's not my passion. Some people that is their passion. They love finance and banking and stuff, and that's awesome. But for me, it was just different, and I realized that that wasn't going to be fulfilling for me. So I knew I had to make a jump. And if it didn't work, it was going to be me trying and not working, you know. It wasn't
Yeah.
going to be thinking, oh man, you know, when I'm age 60, like I wish I would have gone out there and seen what it was like, but it's okay. You know, it's like the safety is one thing and then you have to like explore too. So I don't know. There's a reality to it for sure.
Yeah, of course. Of course you got to pay your bills and everything, but you know, you see a lot of people they chase that figure that just making a little bit more money, but if that the cost of that is your happiness or your fulfillment, is that really worth it? You know, you see a lot of
Right.
people jump into something else just because it's a higher paycheck. But
Right.
in reality, it could be their life around the paycheck or even the life they're living, even though they have the money, isn't as good or as fulfilling. So I love that you
Right.
talk about that because so many people I feel like just get stuck on the money or the number.
Hmm.
But it's important to find something that does fulfill you, even if it cost or even if it pays you a little bit less, or you know
Right.
pays you less right now. That's
Right.
awesome, man. You know, you said you talked about your mom and your dad. Did you have any other like mentors in your life, or especially as you transition into this new industry? Did you have mentors, and what were some of the things that they taught you and kind of helped you learn quickly?
You know, I think that as you go, I guess in any industry, really, there are people who want to help you. You know, I think a lot of people see themselves in like younger people
For
whenever they're
sure.
coming up and they're
Mhm.
like, oh, this guy's like a hard worker. This woman's a hard worker. I want to like reach a hand out and help them and just see what their plan is, like what they want to do. And I felt like a lot of people were, even to this day, you know, a lot of people still reach out and are like, hey, you want to jump on this project, or like have helped me learn other departments, you know.
For
I
sure.
I mean, I feel like I've done pretty much every department other than like maybe camera department, probably. Um, but you know, every time that I've been in a different department or been in a situation that's new to me, I felt that there was somebody there who was like willing to teach me. I have one guy, Matt Sokolar. He's like been super instrumental in helping me like learn the ropes as far as like new things within the art department,
Mhm.
especially like construction things, which is so funny because like I think back to my childhood and my dad and my grandpa were like super handyman, like building stuff all the time, and I was always hated it. Like all I wanted to do was ride my bike and go play baseball,
For sure.
you know, on the street. But they were like, it's like funny that I'm interested in learning new things like that now, and it's like, oh, I could have just learned that back then.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but yeah, I really feel like there are so many people who have just like given me a hand up, you know, like grab my hand and been like, come up here and like learn this stuff. And it's really been awesome. I think that if you're willing to learn and you're a hard worker, there are people who are out there that are willing to take the time to teach you and bring you in and really just help you grow, you know,
For
as a
sure.
person and as a person in the industry, whatever industry you're in.
Yeah. Do you feel like kind of the way that you are, the way that you're okay with receiving criticism? Do you think that affects the amount of people that are willing to help you?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so
I
for
de-
sure. Yeah.
yeah, I
Do you
definitely
feel the same way?
yeah, I definitely feel like people they don't like to take criticism, or they come in with some type of ego.
Right.
And I'm curious because for a lot of people that the more ego they have or the more that they believe they know stuff,
Hmm.
the less progress they make because they're not open to either criticism or to knowing that they don't know everything.
Right.
Do you feel like that's helped you a lot? Because it seems like you've definitely gotten a lot of people that have helped you throughout your life. And do you think that that's a big characteristic as to why?
Absolutely. And you know, I won't like pretend that I didn't have any kind of ego at all. You know, I think because I made home movies as a kid, I came into it thinking like, I know how this is done.
For
Like
sure.
it can't be that hard. But then you realize like the orchestration of the process and how big some of these sets can be, and like even the smallest job is so significant. And it's like you think that what you're doing isn't important in the time, and then you get to a higher level, and then you're like, whoa, the person that's doing the job I used to do is so important right now. Like even the person that's like rolling the cooler full of drinks over to the set, you know,
Right.
it's like I used to be that guy. Like
Mhm.
I think it's like you start to like lose that ego a little bit because you go into it thinking like, oh, I should be in that place right now, or I
Yeah.
should be doing what that person's doing. It's like maybe you're not ready for it yet. You know, it's good to be like, there is a ladder, and I don't think that anybody should be like a gatekeeper or say like, oh, this person shouldn't move up or whatever. But it's like there's definitely a lot of ego loss as you like work from the bottom, you know. And I know that some people come in like whatever, their dad's an executive or something at a studio and they just like go straight into a high level job. But I'd say, you know, the majority of people I meet, they started at the bottom and they had to also lose the ego and say, I don't know anything or I don't know everything, and kind of be taught the right way or the way things are done, you know. And it's like you can be doing something that you think you've known how to do forever, and then someone walks over and they like twist the tool for you, and you're like, oh, that's how the tool's meant to
Right.
work, you know. So definitely like being open to criticism or being open to instruction. It's like other people know more than you, and
Yeah.
that's okay. You don't have to know everything. You can learn things, and that's what's cool about it. So
Yeah, there's that saying that I've always heard that if you believe you know everything, that's when you stop learning. And
totally.
it's so destructive to a lot of people because they get to a point and they're like, "Oh, I know everything." And they try to do things and they wonder why they don't, continue to succeed. And a
Hmm.
lot of the time it's just the fact that they're just not open-minded to learning new things or learning just the small skill set that they don't have that
Hmm.
is, what's stopping them in the end. That's awesome. And
Totally, totally.
so what was I like to kind of talk about your past a little bit too, because of course here we're trying to inspire the youth as well and kind of
Mhm.
connect in that way. What was your what was your family dynamic like? Like how was living with your parents, or, did you have multiple parents, kind of that whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, I had mom and dad, very traditional
Yeah.
mom, dad. I have two younger brothers. They actually both live in LA now too, and they both work in pretty much industry adjacent. Um, and but growing up, we were like I was talking about earlier. It was very like my mom was the nurturer, the creative, like free spirit. My dad was like he was a homicide detective for
Oh wow.
like 2 decades, like a police officer, homicide detective, and so he was like hard nosed
For sure.
realist. But he was always like, don't tell me what you want to do, show me what you want to do.
For sure.
And so for him, it was like we called him the dream killer. It was as like a joke because he was like, oh yeah, of course you want to move to Hollywood, or of course you want to blah blah blah. But he's like, you know, it takes work. He's like,
Mhm.
it doesn't just come. You have to prove that you want it. And so I think that the dynamic was always like my mom encouraging us to do something and then my dad being like, did you pay your truck payment this month?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, well, no, I haven't yet because we were making movies all week and I didn't work. So
Yeah.
it's like, it definitely taught me a lot about balance, which I think is great because you get to a place where you are, you know, it's just becoming an adult. You understand, like, I want to have fun. I want to do the things I love. But like we talked about earlier, it's like the bills don't stop. Like,
Yep.
you know, your landlord doesn't care about your passion. So you have to just like find a way to like work until you can start doing what you love for a living.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, it was a very, very, I would say loving household. Um, you know, love in different ways that we needed growing up. And we also had our grandparents right next door,
Oh
my
nice.
dad's parents. Yeah, so they were like always there for us to just like run over, and it was cool because they're actually both still alive, but my grandpa, he's kind of like a jack of all trades. He makes cowboy boots, he welds, he does woodwork. You know, he literally does every single thing. I think I kind of like take after him and just wanting to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like I don't know. I mean, I love it. I think it's fun. It's like, I don't want to just be defined as like, oh, he does that one thing. You know, it's like, I want to be able to woodwork. I want to be able to work on boots. I want to be able to like work on cars. I want to be able to like make movies. It's just, I don't know. I love being able to do a lot of different things. And I think it was cool to grow up next to him and be able to see somebody that kind of like put that into practice as like
For
a
sure.
lifestyle. For sure. I love that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that kind of probably ties into your like wanting to be more, wanting to grow, The more that you learn, the more
Totally.
you can become. I think that's a
Totally.
great characteristic to have. That's awesome. And um I like to ask this too, just kind of throughout the podcast, but what is something that you learned on set, like through your industry now, that you didn't think was ever like gonna like be a thing? Like, is there any like insider info or insider things that you're like, if you become, a producer or director, you're gonna see this a lot, you're gonna hear this a lot? What is one of
Mhm.
those things?
That's a good question. Um, I guess the thing that I would say is like most interesting is that, like I said, I studied politics, international politics in college, and I kind of had this like idea that I would maybe become a diplomat or like a ambassador or something.
For sure.
And I took a lot of like mediation and classes like that, and I feel like those have come into play a lot on set because there's always like a lot of I mean, it could be like 100 people sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And just having the ability to like navigate personalities
Yeah,
is super important, I feel like. That's a thing that I guess I never really thought about. But you're constantly dealing with like very different people from very different walks of life. Um, and being able to like talk to every person in like the way that they kind of like to be talked to, I
for sure. Yeah.
guess. I don't know. It's just interesting like balancing relationships and personalities on set. I think that's the thing that's been most interesting to me is just like, wow, you can deal with this full spectrum of like human behavior on one set. So that's something to like, I don't know, I guess practice
Mm-hmm.
in your daily life is just like encountering new people that you didn't think you would encounter in your life.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. I've never really heard that one before. So that's really cool. I think it is important to realize that people are, whether they're having a good day, bad day, or wherever they're from. Like with me, with my girlfriend, she comes from a very different culture than I do. She grew up
Mm-hmm,
in Brazil and stuff.
mm-hmm,
So whenever I got to know her and I started talking to her, a lot of the stuff that she would say is like not normal things you would say here, or they're very warm, like she's a very warm person and so is her
mm-hmm.
family, but here we're not used to hugging all the time or kissing people on the cheek and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah,
so
totally.
so just learning different people's like why they act a certain way, or accepting the way that they act is kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, I think kind of goes in line with that. So I think that's a very
Oh,
good
absolutely.
insight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's one that I didn't really think about, but it is true. There's so many people on a set usually, and
Hmm.
especially if you have, whenever there's a problem that comes up or an obstacle, everyone has to deal with the same problem at that point too.
Totally. Totally.
That's awesome, man. Nice.
Especially when it deals with like egotistical actors, like
Mm-hmm.
big names, that can be like some of the biggest learning lessons
For
because
sure.
you're like watching these people who are making so much money and they're just like they won't come to set or they'll like be sitting in their car like not coming out of their car. It's like it really is. I mean, I grew up in a small Texas town where
Yeah.
like everybody knew each other's names and you never saw anybody act like that ever.
Yeah, for real.
It's just weird, man. I like don't condone that behavior at all, but it's like interesting to just encounter it for sure.
And at the end of the day, you kind of have to, because
Yeah,
you need them there to do
yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally.
That's an awesome skill. That's a good skill you got to learn. I mean, it's kind of like, I kind of like treat it like, like teachers and stuff. You're teaching children in a sense, and they're gonna act however they act, and you just
Hmm.
have to get through the day. You have to
Oh my
continue to try to
God.
teach them. So I can
Yeah,
see that tie in.
adaption's really, really key.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so another question I love to ask as well is, if you could talk to yourself 5, 10 years ago, what would be like that advice? Would it be maybe to start, you know, getting into production a little bit sooner? Would it be, I mean, there's a ton of different things, but what would you say to yourself if you could talk to yourself 5, 10 years ago?
I would say just like dive head first because I think that a lot of people are worried. They like tiptoe into things,
For sure.
and you can't go half-heartedly into things because you'll just get half-hearted results. So I think that I would say don't be timid. Like go up and shake that person's hand,
Yeah.
or like um, take the position that you thought was going to be like too much for you.
Yeah.
It's like just go for it and like bust your ass or bust your tail.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that good things will happen for you. Like if you're kind to people and you work hard, I really believe that that's like two key ingredients for success.
Yeah.
So for my younger self, I would say just like don't be scared.
Yeah.
Just dive in. Like it's the water's warm.
Yeah. That's awesome. And yeah, I love that. I think that a lot of people go through life kind of tiptoeing, like you said, because maybe it's either they're either scared for themselves or it's like a sense of insecurity or worrying about like what other people think about them. But
Hmm.
once you realize that, one, this is your life to live. Of course, there's other humans here, but you should be doing what makes you happy and you should be confident in yourself. Um,
Totally.
yeah, I mean, I think that that's phenomenal advice. I usually like to end it too here with kind of letting you talk about what's going on and maybe like some goals that you have right now set
Hmm.
up, and then kind of go into that.
Yeah. Currently have been working on a couple commercials. Actually, the writers' strike just started
Okay.
uh, yesterday.
Oh wow.
So there's like a lot of production shut down
Hmm.
until the studios come to the table and meet with the writers to come up with the deal, uh, which who knows how long that's going to take.
For sure.
But I've been in the process of working on a feature film with a friend of mine named Benny and Christine, and it's kind of like a financial thriller style movie
Hmm.
that we're in like the second draft, third draft of it right now. And hopefully we'll be able to start casting soon. But I'm supposed to direct that one,
Oh wow.
uh, which that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That'll be my first feature ever to direct, which is daunting, but like really exciting because I feel like I'm finally ready to do that, even though I thought I was ready 10 years ago. It's like, no, I
Right.
think I actually am ready now.
Yeah.
um, yeah, but other than that, just grinding away and, you know,
Is this is
same old.
Yeah, is this industry something that you plan to do for the rest of your life? Do you plan to get into maybe acting, or is it more of directing? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I do acting. I just had a film called Nervous Breakdown in a Floral Dress, debuted at the Beverly Hills Film Festival
oh nice.
two weeks ago.
That's
It's
awesome.
directed by thank you. It's directed by a buddy of mine named Cade Larachi, and it was produced by the Synagogue, Jaziel, one of our buddies. And yeah, it had a really good reception. And so hopefully we'll be taking that to Palm Springs Film Festival soon and hopefully nationwide. It's just a short film, but Cade is kind of like one of those crazy movie minds that
Hmm.
is like really exciting. And I think he's a really cool new voice. And we have other projects on the back burner right now that we're hoping to get into production in the next like year or so. So yeah, hopefully, it really is like I think my after a couple of years, I've realized that acting is like one of my favorite things to do.
Oh nice.
Um, so anytime anybody asks me to act, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess the only thing I'm not doing is producing right
Yeah.
now, which is fine with me because that is such a huge headache.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine that. But also, I art directed a film called Old Man at the Corner Store that will be at the LA Dance Film Festival, I believe, in a week or so. That's directed by my buddy Nadav Heyman and produced by my friends Bella and Sage. And actually, Bella was a co-director. Um, yeah, but they're all incredible people. And if I could give anybody any advice on like getting into this industry, it's just like make friends
For
in the
sure.
industry. Like make real, true connections with people and don't just think of it as like a business transaction. Like
Hmm.
truly meet people that you love to be around and that you love who they are. And I think that good things, good projects, great art, and a lot of good times will come out of that. So that's kind of a side piece of
No,
advice.
that's amazing. I love that you say that actually, because I was just talking to someone earlier and we were talking about how people don't look at other people as like people. They look at them as like, transactions. Like kind of exactly what you're
Right,
saying. And you
right.
lose out on so much of the human aspect that we have. And whenever you start to look at people as a transaction, you lose that human part of you and them, and you have to be perfect at that point. You have to be a machine.
Yeah,
when
yeah,
when you start thinking of other people as people and yourself as a person, it's okay to be imperfect. You guys are both
right.
there on this big floating rock trying to figure it
Yeah,
out, and
yeah,
that's kind of part of life, man. But that's amazing. I appreciate
totally.
that so much. That's a great thing to tell people, man. Well, I do
Yeah.
I do appreciate you for being here. Do you have anything else you want to say before we end it?
No, Boston, this was
That's
great
awesome,
talking to
man.
you. I
Well, yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, Rico, I appreciate you for being here, and we'll be talking soon.
All right, sounds good, man.
Awesome.
Have a
All
great
right.
day.
Yep, you too.